XRP is at a crucial support, and this upcoming week could very well spell the end of this long and grueling sideways range, which could result in a bloodbath of epic proportions and a buy opportunity of a lifetime if the price reaches that 30-cent range. So if you've been holding on to your sweet XRP and have been bored out of your mind wondering why other cryptos and even Bitcoin have been outperforming XRP by a whopping 67.9% on the year, and as you can see here, this is the zero line. This would be January 1st of 2024, and in that same time frame, okay, Bitcoin, denoted by this orange line, has performed and increased by 45.3%, while XRP is down a whopping 22.6%. So pay attention, because in this video we'll be covering potential catalysts that could terrorize markets and cause a crash. Right now, the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, is reaching his breaking point, saying for Russia, this means the end of its statehood. This means the end of a 1,000-year history of the Russian state. I think it's clear to everyone. And as of recently, he signed a treaty with a known nuclear power, North Korea and Kim Jong-un, which are enemies of the West. We are dangerously close to World War III. So we'll be doing technical analysis, and you will have clarity on solid price targets, supports, and resistances, as well as this one indicator that can shed a tremendous amount of light on the crypto markets. By the end of this video, you'll know whether you should get in or out, or if now is a good time to add to your crypto and XRP positions. And as always, at one point in this video, we'll be sharing a random crypto that's performing well and how I'll approach investing into it. So stick around. Hello and welcome to the Bull Runners channel. My name is Paul Light, and before we begin this video, I just want to note that nothing we share here is intended to be financial advice. This video is for informational and educational purpose only. Okay, in other words, if you want financial advice, go to a licensed financial advisor. The things I share in this video are my opinions only, so let's get into the video. So we're gonna hop on over to the XRP Ripple chart, and as you can see here, there's a million different ways to cook something, right? Ultimately, it comes down to your style and flavor. I think the most important thing that I really want to focus on would be, when in doubt, zoom out, right? Because right now things aren't looking too hot if you're looking at a very short term time frame. And I know a lot of XRP and Ripple folks really don't think in terms of short term, otherwise they wouldn't be holding the bag so strong. We've been holding a range now for upwards of a year when we really look back. I mean, actually 2 years technically, right? In May of 2022, we were chilling at these prices. So it's been over 2 years. And then even up to a year, if I look at 365 days ago, we're back into those exact same prices. So it might be kind of hard to really see the end goal or the picture here. And so that's why I say, when in doubt, look out or zoom out. And what I notice here in particular, right, when we look at the price of XRP, the lowest it's been since basically 2017, and right before its major move to 331, at least on the Bitstamp exchange, for an all-time high, right? It was chilling at these prices of like 15 to 16 to 19 cents. The only time it's ever actually been there was during the coronavirus pandemic, that nasty drop where virtually all markets dropped, and I believe even the S&P 500 was down like 35%. It was one of the craziest drops since 1987. And so it was pretty scary. And then obviously we printed trillions of dollars to not deal with the problem, instead just kick the can down the road. But that's a different video. So that being said, obviously we have an extremely strong support here, loads of demand. You can see based on this wick based here, and then we've never actually been back into that range. So is it possible? I would say it's probably unlikely with the level of demand and the amount of folks that really want it. Now, typically I like to use horizontal supports and resistances, which really kind of actually give me a better read or a feel on the market than diagonals. But when it comes to a really long term or long periods of time, I'm more than happy to use diagonal supports and resistances, and that's why I'm on the weekly time frame, as you can see right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag a line from these lows right here and try to hit as many points as I possibly can along this trend line. Now you'll notice I am going through a few candles, and I am obviously going through this wick right here. Now the reason for that, and I'll just delete this line right here, is because this again was just an out of the norm black swan event, a once in a lifetime type of a situation, and so the markets responded accordingly. No one wants to hold risk, and in general people make very poor decisions when they're in a panic, and that's exactly what happened. And when enough people panic and then you have a bit of leverage in the system, right, you get cascading liquidations, and so one short needs to be covered, one long position needs to be covered by buying back short, short, and then another, and then another, and then pretty soon it's just like it's like a waterfall, if you will. And so that's exactly what happened. And then in similar fashion, we saw this right here, and again this move was based on the lawsuit right here in 2020 of December. It seems like someone knew what was coming, and that's what caused this pump. And when they pumped the market, they started getting out because they knew on the news, right, this would happen. So it seems like it was quite a bit of volatility, but in general that was bought back up. So what I'm trying to say, okay, is that even if we started going into this range right here of 40 cents or wicked below, it's likely we're going to see some demand and buying back into the range. And so it's, again, when in doubt, zoom out. Okay, but now we're going to look, and the reality is this might not occur at any moment in time here. However, if the markets start to dump, and we'll just go ahead and go over to, for example, the chart of Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin recently reached its all-time high and was consistently sold off right around here. Okay, and then if we go down to, let's say, like a daily time frame, and let me just pull up some volume here, you can see that volume has consistently been declining, right? So we have a range now that Bitcoin has built, and I'll just go ahead and put a support right here. Consistently, we're seeing support at that $60,000 level, $60,700 level, and we're seeing resistance at the $70,500 level. The good news is that sentiment has been relatively bearish. A lot of things have reset, and so I do believe Bitcoin is in a good place to start making some moves. But until we stop trending down and seeing a series of lower lows and lower highs, until we stop seeing these crazy wicks to the upside where the market tries to break out only to get sold back off, until we stop seeing these big bearish engulfing candles like right here, and arguably this big wick right here, and sometimes you'll even get these little inside candles, right? As you can notice right here and here, these are two bullish inside candles, but the inside candle is technically smaller than the previous candle, so that doesn't really help me in terms of bullishness. And now, right, we've actually sold off below our support for what used to be a support now becomes a resistance. So in other words, if Bitcoin continues to break down, okay, what I'm trying to say is it's likely that XRP is going to break down too. In a bearish environment, it's not like people are holding XRP and saying, I'm just going to hold it forever. There are those folks that may not be as bullish as you or may not know as much as you, and so they might buy it because they hear about it from someone like me or you. But then what happens is, on the sign of any bad news, they panic and say, I got to get out because their bag drops a little bit, right? And ultimately, if enough people are levering into the market, what happens is you can get some liquidations as long as the market continues dumping. So volume is tremendously down and consistently down right over here, which leads me to believe, right, that we still might have a way to go. Even if we range right back up here to the $66,000 level, this is going to be a very strong resistance, and we can even see that on the VRVP. This is basically it's kind of like a cliff, and this cliff is telling us that there's a boatload of volume here, and the fact that we couldn't stay above it and now are being sold off only leads me to believe that even if we bounce back up into this range, it's far more likely that this would be a good profit taking zone than something to buy into. The only time I'd want to buy is somewhere down below here or up into a new high or a breakout. But as things stand, things are pretty stagnant. And so, you know, it's obvious that XRP would be in the same boat. We'll go back to that XRP chart. And right here, right, if I were to pull up the Bitcoin chart versus the XRP chart, which we talked about earlier, and I will go ahead and put that on a percentage based scale, you can see here that they are deviating. So for whatever reason, Bitcoin continues to move, but XRP continues to drop, which is again no fun when you're invested in a crypto. So let's look at history. Again, when in doubt, zoom out. If we look at history, we might get a good indicator of what's to come. So we have our major long-term trend line here. I think everyone's seen that, everyone's looked at it, which gives me confidence to say that, you know what, even if it were to dump down here, it'd be a buy of a lifetime. Somewhere in that 30 cent, 36 cent range would be great, right? And arguably, maybe you should set up a situation in which you can deploy more capital into those ranges as long as the entire market environment remains relatively bullish. As of right now, we're mid-term bearish. Long-term, however, I am very bullish, especially into the end of the year, which we can talk about at a future time. So that being said, what I'm really after is I want to focus on these ranges in which XRP just pumped and skyrocketed to crazy new all-time highs, and then just look at what happened relative to Bitcoin. So if I put a line right here, right, and realistically this would be our range. Again, typically when you reach new highs and things start to cool off, you really start to develop those resistances, and it looks exactly the same on Bitcoin. So you'll notice that this would be the range here, about 30 cents. It was consistently sold off at, and then failed to even touch it right here at 28 cents before breaking down just slightly. And then finally, when we, you know, whacked right through that resistance, not only did we whack right through, look at what happened to volume. Volume was tremendously increasing, which obviously would be a signal of institutional buying, or, you know, larger players buying. Back then, there weren't that many institutions, but people were still playing with millions, and it didn't require more than a few million, 5 million, 10 million to move a market like XRP. And so then, you know, obviously you get euphoria and all of these other participants entering the market, and then it just continued moving. Now, what I'm really after is to look at the price range, or the range in which Bitcoin entered the market, right? So I'm going to put a line right there first and foremost, and then I'm going to go ahead and pull up Bitcoin, and I'll first leave it at percentage. Here's Bitcoin, and it did not go to percent. Let's go to percent. Okay. So right here we have Bitcoin. Okay, at one point in time, when you're sitting here back here at, I don't know, June of 2017, right, Bitcoin would have been up about 500% to its all-time high, whereas XRP, as you can see here, lagged, and it wasn't until December or January of 2018 that XRP started pumping. In other words, Bitcoin was already near its all-time high well before XRP reached its all-time high. So typically, it seems XRP is lagging Bitcoin. Okay, Bitcoin first makes the move, then XRP, and this is pretty consistent across all altcoin markets when you really study markets. Another thing you'll notice when you study these markets is consistently, right, even if one starts to be a leader and then it starts to lag, that's a good signal and an indicator to potentially get out. If Bitcoin is leading the market and performing and doing new all-time highs, and maybe you have a few other market leaders or altcoins that are performing and doing really crazy all-time highs, and then they put in a new higher low while your current crypto puts in an all-time high and then start to break down, this would be a good indicator that maybe the market move is over. When leaders start to lag is typically when you want to think about getting out. But in general, they trade pretty correlated. As you can see here, they're both going down right here. They reach their lows right here. They start to pump right here, dump right here, pump right here, dump all the way down to their lows for the year, right? So on and so forth. And so then again, right, and this was just kind of like that midterm summer lull, if you will. Okay, again, what I'm really after is the next major move on XRP. And if I turn this chart off, and we'll just go ahead and put it back on a logarithmic scale here, delete these two lines so it doesn't get too confusing. What I'm really after again is to see where was our next major peak and high. And obviously that was back in 2021 of April. Okay, and what was required for that breakout or that move? Well, I would argue I'm gonna put a resistance right here. Why? Well, because I see one time we were sold off, two times we were sold off, three times we were sold off. off. And then when we broke above the 66-cent range, and arguably even the 60-cent range up to the 66-cent range. Again, I like boxes, you know, something that we call maybe potentially a Darvis box, but this would be a range of support and resistance, right? It's typically never just one price point. It's typically a range of it. And so you give yourself room, because typically then if you don't set your stop loss right at a line, or your take profit, if you will, you could see the thing keep moving through. And take profits would typically work better in those scenarios, whereas stop losses can be slightly dangerous, right? You have stop hunters, you have institutions. If everyone puts their stop loss at the same place, typically that is like, it acts like a magnet. It will get hit eventually. Okay, so what happened here is the market started breaking for new all-time highs right around here, and what I'm really after is to see how Bitcoin performed in that same time frame. So let me go ahead and pull up the chart of Bitcoin, and I am going to make sure that I can see them against each other. And so you can see here that Bitcoin was putting in some new all-time highs here. It was basically at its high for the year and up 500% again. By the time in that same time frame, XRP was lagging the market. And then finally, when it did break, XRP, right, started breaking to new all-time highs, while Bitcoin had already reached its all-time highs and then started lagging, right, the market. So notice XRP is again lagging. It takes a little bit longer for XRP to move, but then you see this massive volume really kick in, and then by that point Bitcoin is already breaking back down while XRP is holding its range. But again, if you start to see Bitcoin break down and then XRP shortly thereafter starts to put in new all-time highs, and then you start to see, you know, a further lower low on Bitcoin, chances are the market move is over and you should start thinking about getting out. So that being said, guess what's been happening over the past year and 2 years, right? XRP, and this could be due to many factors, a lack of interest. It could be due to at this point, you know, even if we've talked about it over and over virtually on every YouTube channel known to man, right? The lawsuit. Ultimately, we're going to need a catalyst to really enter the market, and it would have to be some pretty big news in a bullish environment, because if we see good news even in a bear environment, what potentially will happen, right, is XRP will pump really hard on the news, and then if you start to see it slightly, you know, the scale slightly tip to the bearish side, and you just can see consistent selling and lower lows and lower highs, well, then that would look more like exit liquidity. So what you'd really want to focus on is, okay, does the market look bullish? Is the environment bullish? And if it is, and that there's a positive catalyst and XRP puts in a new high, then that's something that you would want to hold into. However, if we're in a bearish environment and XRP starts pumping like this, right, and on some sort of catalyst or news or good crazy announcement, whatever the case may be, and then you start to see it lull and chill off and start to sell off and put new lows and new higher lows and lower lows in, well, then chances are that move is over, and that's really just profit taking. Okay, you would be the exit liquidity buying into that news event. So it's really important that you pay attention to that stuff. Also, you know, volume is tremendously down, so we really are prepping up for a major move. But if we break below this range right here at 45 cents, right, things will look relatively dire for XRP. Now, let's talk about some of those catalysts that could cause something like that to happen. As of very recently, on his trip into the Southeast Asias, Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, said they, the West, say that they want to achieve the strategic defeat of Russia on the battlefield. What does this mean for Russia? For Russia, this means the end of its statehood. And I thought to myself, well, I did see this on Twitter, and I never know if I can trust or verify anything on here, because some of these could be, you know, opinions, and ultimately the guy's speaking Russian and I don't speak Russian. And although, you know, you could probably find an AI machine to go and change it out for you, I can't just upload this video into GPT. So I had to double verify it, and I went to Yahoo News, and Yahoo News was saying the same thing. Now, what's really interesting to me, right, is that they didn't actually make note of everything. And so he was in Vietnam saying this very recently. They didn't really make mention of everything. They said strategic battlefield defeat would be the end of Russia's statehood, Putin claims. And so they're being a little bit more hard on him. And I'm not saying that you should be hard or soft towards this guy. He's ultimately a dictator and definitely has done some pretty, nasty and heinous things to his political rivals and so on and so forth. But who says the U.S. is any better, right? Then the question arises, why should we be afraid? Isn't it better to go to the end? And so this is really more of just a slight, hit piece on what he's saying and how stupid and foolish it is. But then when you actually go and now, so I know, okay, it's probably verified. It's on Yahoo News. So I can go and watch this video and ultimately, and we'll get right over there. Ultimately, it's probably true. So this is how he actually says it in To the End. He says, this would mean the end of Russia's statehood. This means the end of a 1,000-year history of the Russian state. I think this is clear to everyone. And then the question arises, why should we be afraid? Isn't it better for us to go to the end? This is elementary formal logic, and here is the video of him sharing that. So obviously we're not going to spend too much time listening to his Russian speech, but this was posted by a guy named Dmitry Alpervotich. So, and I assume he's also Russian. So that being said, okay, at that same time, he met up and created a strategic partnership treaty between North Korea and Kim Jong-un. And there's always all of these funny memes and videos of them being friendly and smiling and waving at each other. And it's like, it's such a meme at this point, right? Because they're like tremendously evil dictators. And again, who's to say that most of our leaders in the US aren't? It's just that they have to work a little harder to hide it, right? Russian President Vladimir Putin and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un signed a significant mutual defense agreement known as the Treaty on Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. Now, again, these are very closely aligned. They happen within the same week of each other, and that was like this week. And so here's what the article says. If either country faces a direct threat of armed aggression, immediate activation of communication channels is required. Moreover, in the event of a war, each party commits to provide military and other forms of assistance. The treaty prohibits either party from entering into agreements with third countries that infringe upon the core interest of the other. In other words, agreements with third countries would be the US or any NATO country, right? Measures will be prepared for joint actions aimed at bolstering defense capabilities to prevent conflicts and ensure regional and international peace and security. And we have it on the record that over and over and over again, Putin has said, hey, we would like a peace deal with Ukraine, and Ukraine consistently shuts it down, and arguably at the behest of US government officials. So we seem to be the ones consistently perpetuating the war, however you want to get the information. And so ultimately what this guy is doing, and this is why it seems so dire right now, is creating an agreement with another nuclear power because things are getting to the point where his back is against the wall. And so ultimately what happens when you put a dictator with nuclear power and they're back against the wall saying we will destroy Russia, whether it's a war of attrition or a war to the death, and Russia is going to go back and retaliate because ultimately Putin is a nationalist. It's obvious he really cares about his country, Russia, maybe not his political opponents, but he really cares about their history in Russia. And if you watch the Tucker Carlson interview, right, he knows that history better than virtually any president in the world knows their own history. So it's going to be a really interesting time, but this just screams we are getting to the end of this thing. We've got to figure this thing out, and if there's going to be a nuclear war, so be it. So this could potentially be the very beginning of the worsening of this situation between Russia, Ukraine, the West, NATO. And if any negative news comes from this in a relatively midterm bearish environment, well, you can bet your ass XRP and Bitcoin and just about every capital market in the world is going to collapse. Now, as promised, we are going to hop on over to the section where I share that one crypto with you, and it is going to be ENS, Ethereum Name Service. Maybe some of you have heard of it before, but it's like a domain name service where you could go to like a GoDaddy and buy any domain, right? Like bullrunners.com. Well, this would be for Ethereum name services. So you could have like your own name .eth, and you can connect your wallets there. And ultimately people could send money to your name .eth. Okay, so this is a legitimate company. If we go to their website, you can see welcome to the new internet. You can get your domain name, and I've used this plenty times before. It works really well, and so there are no discrepancies or any weird, funny business going on here. This is a legitimate business with legitimate revenues. The current market cap is $810 million. Whether that's overvalued, undervalued remains to be seen. I'm not too sure. I haven't done, the homework into the financials, and most of these companies you can't get the financials anyways. It's not like stocks where they report to a centralized entity like the SEC. But that being said, it is listed just about everywhere. And if you come over here and go to the about section, it'll say it's a distributed, open, and extensible naming system based on the Ethereum blockchain. ENS converts human readable Ethereum addresses like john.eth into a machine readable alphanumeric codes, from wallets like MetaMask. And so it's a pretty cool asset, but what I'm really after is the price and the potential, right? So I'm going to come over to the chart, and as you can see here, this thing launched back in 2021 November, and it put in its all-time highs right then and there at about $85. It failed to break out or close above $75, and since that point in time, it really just continued trending down with a lot of ranging sideways action for a period of like a year and a half. Finally broke down to its lows in October of 2023, and then put in some new highs and higher highs. So that being said, we saw a lot of volume entering here and here, and then again here, and then finally over here. So unlike most of the cryptos in the market right now, this thing is trending and performing. And really, again, this volume is very positive. It's a good indicator that there's serious demand from institutional players for a product like this. So I'm going to go to that weekly time frame, and I'm just going to put a line on the chart. As simple as that. Sometimes it doesn't need to be difficult. And even from a weekly time frame, look at how massive these big green volume bars are here, here, here. This is, again, very indicative of a lot of buying from institutional players. And then even these wicks right here on the weekly, as you can see here, there's a lot of institutional buying happening here at the $20 level, $19.90. So this to me looks like just an absolutely phenomenal play, unlike many plays I'm seeing in the market right now. And with this huge cup, okay, I mean, arguably this is a cup and a handle, right? If I take, and we'll just get this arc tool right here to right here, so you can see this is the cup, and we will do it one last time, and this is the handle. Okay, if we break above this, typically you get a 100% move or a 1-to-1. So this would be an $18 play, and from the top of that bad boy, you get about an $18 play. And that's about where my target would be, back into this $44 range. And so you can see right here, we had a lot of trading happen here, and this would be a resistance. So I would argue this would be, any take profit at 39 to 44 would be a great play. So if this thing continues to move and break above here with some volume to confirm it, it's great. But as things stand, I'm seeing very weak sell volume and a lot of good buy volume. Just set a tight stop. Realistically, if this thing breaks down probably below this low right here at like $18, around $18, then I would likely get out. But I am going to be adding to my own positions. That's not to encourage you or to incentivize you to do it after me. I'm just letting you know this is something that I'm really looking at that I think could potentially turn into a decent little play. So let's move on with the video. So as some of you may know, the VRVP is a visible range volume profile. So let me go ahead here and pull that up real quick. And so you can see right here, when I look at XRP over the last, I don't know, since March of 2020, even on a daily time frame, where the majority of volume has traded. Okay, in other words, it actually wasn't down here at 12 cents, right? It wasn't up here at $1.95. The majority of the volume has traded at 50 cents. Right here, 51 cents. So I'm going to put a line there. Now, it works very similarly to this next indicator that I'm going to pull up, but the next indicator gives you a bit more data. So we're going to go ahead and pull that down. Now, what's very valuable about a VRVP before we dive into this next tool is the fact that it really tells you the major point of interest. This is the place at which most traders end up making decisions. And this could be due to a number of factors or varying factors, such as some people bought in at that price and time, and so from that point in time they're either in the money or below water. And whenever someone is below and they start to lose money, right, they look at that 50 cent range and say, I want to hold until I break even. Whereas other people, if they sold there, they're looking at it and saying it's just too expensive. But for whatever reason, that price seems to be of most interest to people, which again is very helpful because those types of ranges typically act like magnets. Okay, it's the human psyche of that price range that drives people to, go beyond and above the price or well below the price. But the price will typically move there and either be resisted a few times or supported a few times. As things stand, we are actually below there now. So again, right now the intermediate term trend is bearish, even though we have a support at around the 44 to 45 cent range. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up this indicator, and it's called open interest. And so if I click on that right there, I'll pull up by Leviathan, okay, and I'm going to make sure that I do the profile, and so it'll give me this little thing, set start time. Now what I want to do, okay, is I want to use the previous range high, and again I'm on a daily time frame, and then we're just going to throw this thing around back and forth. Then I'm going to put it through the end of the range right over here. Now you're going to see this tool pop up, and it's going to look very scary and messy, and so our goal is not to scare you or to be messy. Our goal is to give you guys insights. Okay, so the reason I chose this day is because this is the high of the range, and since that point in time, right, we failed to not only break into this range high, we've consistently traded in the range below it. So this is a major point of interest, and that's why I'm using it. Okay, and by the way, the tool could work in many different ways. You could drag it and drop it over here to this range. You could drag it and drop it over here to this range. It's up to you ultimately, but I'm going to use a major point. Okay, and so right here, as you can see, we have a total, right, volume, which is this is open interest orders of 1.64 billion on the buy side and 573 million on the sell side. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change a few settings. I've got it at that 90 range. I want it to be delta, and I am going to save, click OK. And so the delta is really just the differential. Okay, in other words, the majority of people or money, and I would say people, have bought in right here, and again, as you notice, 52 cents. So if the majority of people bought here and we are currently well below here, okay, well then that means they're underwater. And so if they're underwater, typically, right, they would have some sort of a stop loss down here at 44 cents or even below the previous range low right here at 41 cents. In other words, if I'm a big institutional player and people are already in a loss right here, and if because they expected it to go up, the majority of people bought in right here, and VRVP is telling me the exact same story, okay, then this leads me to believe, okay, so they're obviously congruent, all right, there's a confluence there. This leads me to believe a lot of freaking stops are set for the 44 cent range and below that range of 40 cents down to 39 cents. So it is probably the most likely outcome, and from that point forward we would have a boatload of support, right? Our ranges would be 40 cents to 36 cents. That would be our next major range of support. So it is a very likely scenario, and no matter how many ways I cook it, right, because at this point in time this is how many people have bought in, but if I move this indicator and start it over, let's say, I don't know, here from that range high, you can see here that a lot of people entered shorts here. So a lot of people were short short. And yes, these people are above the water, but if we go earlier, the majority of people are under the water. If I go from here, you'll notice that we have a lot of people short right here. Okay, and so right now they are in a slight profit, but not really that much, so they could easily be wicked out. And then finally, from this major low right here, again, a major point of interest would be right there. So I'm going to go down to these smaller time frames, and we're going to find out what to think or what to look at for the upcoming term. Okay, so again, I'm going from major points of interest, and that is ultimately the goal. So I'm going to try to drag this to that perfect place right down there. And as you can see here, the majority of people are major point of interest, 79 million net difference, is trading right here at the 51-cent range. So if I consistently am changing time frames, I'm going back and forth between ranges, I'm starting to see a lot of the same confluences here, then it leads me to believe, right, a lot of people probably got in here. Yes, you've had a lot of net selling, but even more so buying, and so people are looking at this 51-cent range as a good place. And if they're right, we're gonna have to break above this 55-cent range for a move to the upside. But again, in a very bearish environment, that's a scary or a dangerous thing to say or believe. And so I really, if you're already in a loss, my personal opinion, just hold your bag and start to add to your positions if we break down to the 36 to 40 cent range. And if you're in a positive, you know, awesome, good for you. You bought a long time ago, because it's unlikely you bought these direct lows. Most people don't buy those direct bottoms, and I'm going to go ahead and delete that tool now. But it is a very helpful and valuable tool, and so you can mess around with it however you want. But these would be my range supports and the places at which I would buy. So if you haven't bought and you've been thinking about buying XRP, this would be the range that I think would be a great time to enter. And in the current negative environment that we're in, it's probably likely that we're going to do that. So thanks so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed the video, smash that subscribe button. It really helps the channel out. Click like and comment this thing up to Valhalla, right? And I appreciate you watching and spending time with me. By the way, if you haven't already, go on over to bullrunners.com to download an ebook to learn how to think and invest and trade like us. You can do that by clicking the link down below, and I will see you in the next video.